when you do any action with your body, how are your bones actually moving? The most intuitive guess is to say your muscles, which is only half of the answer. Because a muscle doesn't actually attach to a bone, something has to be the intermediary that allows the muscle to pull on the bone and create the movement, and that is called a tendon. And a tendon is organized into collagen fibers and end up looking very similar to your muscles, but there's a few key differences on how you build and adapt your tendons that can really make a big difference in weightlifting, sport performance, everyday life, and injury predictability. So in today's video, we're going to be going over how you can adapt your tendons, how the physiology works, and of course, why each part could be necessary in a program where the goal makes sense. The first thing we have to understand is, how do we fundamentally change a tendon? Whenever we lift, exercise, or do anything, we are going to create some micro tears in the tendon. And this is perfectly fine, because as long as you have the right nutrition, your body is going to easily repair these micro tears and build them back stronger, and potentially build them back differently to better adapt them for your sport, which we'll get into later. But when this remodeling occurs, the first thing that happens is when your body detects those tears, it then starts some transduction signals that lead to different factors and enzymes being released to then repair these collagen fibers with new ones that are stronger and better adapted to the stimuli that tore them. And this is actually eerily similar to every other system in your body, like your muscles and your bones. But something that makes tendons unique is they have a stiff versus complicit gradient that they can adapt to that can make a really, really big difference on your health and sport performance. The characteristics of a stiff tendon are going to include better power output, which is something we see in powerlifting, like lifting more weights faster or your push-off during a sprint. And these stiff tendons are also going to have a far lower risk of an overuse injury because they are built so strong by the way they densely pack. But with that dense packing comes a much larger probability to have an acute tear, which is something like a torn Achilles. And when we swing to the other side, we see that risk for tear switch to risk of an overuse injury. And along with this, your tendons are better at absorbing impact. So in sports that keep going on and on, like cross country, distance swimming, Ironman, stuff like that, a more complicit tendon is going to help you keep repeatedly get that shock absorption in and keep your body healthy until there's a point where your tendons are too complicit and not stiff enough where you will overuse them extremely easily. And to go into this further, we're going to have sport examples for each one. A baseball athlete will be all around stiff. They have to whip their arm fast, which is wrist, elbow, and shoulder, all acting in that stiff manner. And of course, pushing off when you pitch, running to a ball, sprinting the bases, that is all going to keep you stiff. While a cross-country runner is going to be the best example of complicit, because all they do is just run, run, run forever. And if you want to do that, you can't have very stiff tendons. However, athletes do not exist at stiff and complicit all the way on those sides. Because like I said earlier, this is going to be super easy to overuse, especially for most athletes. And if you're too stiff, you're not going to have any shock absorption, and that shit is just going to tear. So a lot of athletes probably live somewhere between here and here. But what's really interesting is if you take a sport like boxing, you might need a little more complicit legs to keep your fatigue down and keep your injury risk low, while in your hands, you want as much power output as you can get to knock out your opponent fast, so you actually want a stiffer arm. So what this means is that depending on your lifestyle and what you do for sport, different parts of your body might be better off more complicit versus more stiff, or might be better off stiffer versus more complicit. So you might want your legs to be on the stiff side, while it's actually better for your shoulders to be on the complicit side. So you have to be able to analyze yourself. And in the description, there's going to be a document to see which one of your tendons would be better off complicit or stiff based on your goal. And we can talk about these adaptations all day long, but they mean nothing if you can't actually make them happen. So we're going to segue into how this actually happens. We already detailed that some compound detects these micro tears, and it makes a single transduction pathway that then leads to them being repaired. However, once they start to repair, different enzymes like LOX will come in and might actually make these repair and make cross bridges. These cross bridges are what make them stiffer and give you great power output, hence the stiff tendon. And an LOX inhibition is actually going to lead to these looser tendons with more small wavy patterns that are really, really great for shock absorption and are like elastic bands. But if you want your tendons to adapt in the right way, there's something more important than whatever the fuck is going on here. You need the right stimuli and you need the right nutrients. To keep the nutrients simple, all I'm going to tell you need is collagen and vitamin C. You could take these together in a powder compound supplement, but if you want to get collagen, meat is going to help you, or actually gelatin that you can find in like sugar-free jellos and stuff. And vitamin C, you could take powder, but let's be honest, eat your fruit, eat your kiwis, eat your peppers, and just get it all in naturally, and you can probably get what you really want. However, a big caveat to this is if you are an athlete and you're recovering from tendonitis or a tendinopathy, you should really look into doing gelatin and vitamin C powder supplements timed into when you're getting in the stimuli that we're going to segue into right now. So for two different adaptations, it is very safe to assume that one side will have something and the other side will be the exact opposite. So here's where the overlap is going to start. These stiff things, if we think about what stiff tendons do, they create a lot of power. Doing a fast squat, sprints, those are all going to do something a lot. So if we think about this, fast seems to have a lot to do with stiff, and slow has a lot to do with complicit. And by slow, I mean slow eccentric movements. This will influence a complicit tendon more than this will, which also leaves something about rapid. Doing these skill agility ladders are also going to lead to a stiff adaptation because of that rapid movement. And when you think about it, when your feet are rapidly hitting the ground, they are not practicing shock absorption because they're using the power to immediately spring up. So doing the opposite of rapid would be if you're jumping, you let your feet slowly cushion the impact, and this is going to train your tendons to start doing the same thing. They're going to become less stiff and become more elastic, and of course, in some scenarios, that is phenomenal. However, this kind of brings us into another discussion of isometrics and plyometrics, something very popular in athletic training. This can kind of go for general strength and is going to bleed into them. And all you hear online is do isometrics for your tendons. But there's two extremely different ways to do it and two extremely different adaptations. So if you listen around online and start doing some isometric workout, you might be stiffening your tendons when you need them to be a little looser. So here's how you can tell what you're actually doing. A longer isometric hold is going to be a lot better for complicit, and something fast and heavy, like an overcoming isometric on a heavy barbell, is going to be really, really awesome for stiff. A quick note on overcoming isometrics: if you're in the middle of your athletic season, an overcoming isometric is a great way to get a stimuli for very, very low fatigue during your season. But I'm going to segue back, and now we're going to go into plyometrics. Plyometrics feel very natural when you do them as fast as you can, hard, super long exertion, so they're really, really great for stiff. And if you slow down your med ball toss like this, it is going to help make a complicit adaptation, and it might be weird. Things like a catch are really easy because you cushion it back. So any catch or throw, you have to do very slow, and the catch you have to cushion. And on the opposite end, if you catch it and stop the momentum, it's going to be stiff. So you have to think about absorption or just complete exertion, and that's going to come back into this fast versus slow. And a lot of you are going to understand it perfectly from those words, but some of you are not, and that's okay, because here's some exercise examples for each stimuli. For this example, we're going to say I have a stiff Achilles that I need to make more complicit. What I do to accomplish this is a 45 to 60 second calf raise isometric hold that's heavy enough for it to be challenging and can produce more load over time to create a better adaptation. And then I do a slow depth jump where I jump slow and I land slow. This is going to really help adapt the tendon. And of course, doing slow side to side heel hops where I really focus on absorbing the force when I'm landing. You're going to create that adaptation very, very fast. Now, let's say my elbow is overly complicit and I want to be ready to pitch for baseball, but I don't want a super easy overuse injury. I'm probably going to want that stiffer, and it's going to make my arm more powerful. How would I go about this specifically at the elbow? The first thing I do is an isometric hold, 5 to 10 seconds of a weighted push-up, and that's going to really help on my elbow tendon. The next thing I do would be a fast chest pass throw to really work that movement as fast as I can. And the last thing I do would be a very fast med ball press. I would grab a light med ball and I'd sit back on a bench, and it'd almost act like a close grip bench press, and I just do it as fast as I possibly can to get that rapid movement and activate that elastic energy in my muscles through the tendon. And this is all going to help make this complicit tendon more stiff, so I have better power output for when I'm pitching a baseball, and I'm less likely to get that overuse Tommy John surgery. And of course, it is actually really hard to assess where your tendons are at, especially without imaging or actually finding the injury to happen. It's just super, super hard to tell. But understanding how your tendons work can be interesting for some and it can help you understand why you might be programmed to do something. So when the doctor tells you to hold these isometrics that feel pointless, they're actually really doing something under the hood. It's not making your muscles stronger right away, because these adaptations can actually take months to even a year, depending on how far there is to go. And if you want more content simply explained like this, follow for more.